tense for some of us, for others, not so much. And I think it's important for all of us to have people in our lives that we can learn from, that we can have conversations with, that we can understand. And today is going to be no exception. I got a friend of mine, a super dope artist, by the way, Christian hip hop artist by the name of K9 Khalil, who's super dope, out of Virginia. And we're going to be talking about why he's voting for Trump as a black Christian rapper. This is gonna blow some of your guys' minds, and we're gonna be getting into it. So before we do that, I'm gonna drop the intro one time.
I don't need nothing else. Every time I'm with you, yo, it's something else. It's a fact, and it's nothing else. Got your hand out, you don't even need a help. Ooh, I don't need nothing else. Every time I'm with you, yo, it's something else. It's a fact, and it's nothing else. Got your hand out, you don't even need a help. Ooh, that's right. I don't need nothing else. That's right.
King's Dream Entertainment.
What's going on? It's Ruslan with KingStreamENT.com. Thank you so much for tuning in to watch this live stream. And I got my man K9 Khalil. We're going to be talking about why he's voting for Trump. A few days ago, I had my man Paul Russell on here to talk about why he was voting for Joe Biden. As some of you guys know, I am politically agnostic. I don't have a dog in the fight. I think both parties are ran by extremists that I personally don't want nothing to do with. But I understand and I'm empathetic to why people will vote different ways. And I don't think there's a right or wrong way to vote. I think there's just certain values people may hold, certain convictions they may hold. And I think we need to spend more time listening than we do talking, and not listening to respond and have an answer or be combative, but sincerely listening. And so this is not pre-recorded. If you're watching this live, let me know where you're watching this from. Give this video a quick thumbs up, and do consider subscribing so that you could stay locked in, turning on that bell notification button, all that good stuff. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the man, the myth, the legend, one of the dopest emerging artists in the CHH space. He's laughing as if I'm capping. I'm not capping. Guys, K9 Khalil, all the way from Virginia. What's up, my man?
What's good, bro? Let's get it.
Hey, if you're watching this live, let me know how this sounds. I adjusted the levels a little bit. Let us know if we're at the same volume. And again, let me know where you're watching this from so we give you a shout out. Actually, I'm not giving any shout outs today. We're going to get right to it. By the way, today, the only thing I'm going to say a few times so you guys don't miss it, it is the last day to shop the politically agnostic election collection, the very last day to shop. And if you're following me, if you're on my super phone, if you're a Patreon, you can get a discount code. And I just want to make sure that you guys know about that. And I will be mentioning that a lot of times because we don't got a sponsor for this video. The merchandise is the sponsor. And if you want to partner with what we're doing here at King's Dream, that is how you do it. You partner by being a Patreon or copping some merch. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, K9 Khalil, one of the dopest artists. I keep trying to send him beats. He doesn't rap any of my beats. I really like this music. And I love this dude, man. Super dope. He's multifaceted, multi-talented. He does video. He does design. He does it all. He makes fire music. Super fun. Man, let's just get right into it, bro.
Let's get it.
You are voting, or did you already vote?
I've already voted online. Yep.
Wait, you can vote online?
Huh? Yeah, you can vote online, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to the poll. I'm old school. Tomorrow I'm going to the polls. So
yes,
you
sir.
voted online, and you voted for
Good old Biden.
J. Trump. Yo, what a twist. The whole title. He's in Virginia, which I don't know how much Virginia is a swing state this time. I know they're really looking at Arizona, Georgia, Florida, Ohio, and Iowa are like the main states that everybody's kind of keeping an eye on. So, man, why did you vote for Donald J. Trump?
So, like, it all started in 2016, for real, for real. I mean, I didn't just vote for him this year. I actually voted for him in 2016. Mainly in 2016, I can say I was really uneducated about voting and uneducated about what I wanted. It was mainly because I gravitated towards Trump. I liked Trump before all of this presidency stuff. I liked him when he was doing the WWE stuff. I liked him when he was doing his what was it, the TV shows where he was trying to get somebody to be his it was a I can't remember what it was, but it was I used to rock with all those shows. Yeah, Apprentice, the roasts. Like, and it seemed like everybody was rocking with him before this all went down. Like,
yes,
that's what really played a huge part into why I voted for him in the first place in 2016. I didn't rock with Hillary. I thought she was like really like low key, like doing some illegal stuff. But I mean, it wasn't really, like I said, it wasn't educated. In 2016, I wasn't educated about it. So I was like, okay, I'm rocking with Trump. 4 years later, I can safely say I'm legit like rocking with Trump, like for his policies. With in 2016, I wasn't. But like, and not only am I rocking with him, but like, I don't think there's really any other, like there's other choices, but it's going to come down to just Biden or Trump. That's your options. Like you can vote for a third party, but like I'm looking at as in what's going to happen today. Like what can I make a change today? I don't think a third party is going to win this election. So that's another reason I'm not voting for a third party. But yeah, it's pretty much how it started.
So let's back up. You said in 2016 you voted for him primarily because you just liked him as an entertainer.
Right. I liked him. I grew up with him, watching his stuff. I like how he was different than other politicians. I like how he was more aggressive. And I think a lot of people like that. I like the fact that I heard that even Republicans didn't even like him. Like Democrats and Republicans didn't even like him. Yeah, and the fact it was so polarizing to both sides. I was like, yo, this is what we need. This is not a politician. This is not somebody like that's normal. And back then I was gravitating towards that. I was like, yeah, this is what we need. We really want to see some change. This is who we need. Never understood all the other, but that's what I originally.
So everybody's giving you a hard time in the chat, and they want to make sure that you didn't really vote online because you cannot vote online. And they know that Trump supporters like to troll, and you are in a swing state, so your vote does matter. So that everybody, all the fellow Trump supporters, just want to make sure that you didn't get finessed and or you didn't, you are trolling.
I voted on a kiosk in a school, so I don't. Is that
so
the
you
normal?
You did not vote online. You voted in a kiosk. You didn't vote from your iPhone.
No, I did not vote from my iPhone.
Okay. Well, you said online. That's what I think. That's what everybody meant. Okay.
That's online.
Moving on.
Kiosk.
Okay,
Paper.
He did not vote online. He voted on a digital machine, but he is saying that it was like a computer type. Okay, never mind. It doesn't matter. We digress. Now, so you said initially you supported Trump because of your the name brand awareness. You grew up with him in wrestling. You grew up with him watching The Apprentice. Now you say you are now more hip to his policies, right? So a shift happened. So would you say that you politically always held the same views and then something confirmed it? Like, or would you say you had different views maybe when you were younger and then you got red pilled, right? Because there's a lot of people getting red pilled. So like which one is it?
I would agree with your second statement. I definitely grew up as a Democrat. Like I definitely grew up thinking that was literally my only option. And like they were the ones that were protecting us from the evil Republicans. And that's pretty much how I grew up. Once I got older, like I said, 2016 was a big shift for me. Like it wasn't like that was my first year I was actually able to vote. Like I wasn't able to vote before that. So like I took it a little bit more serious. But like I would say like I grew up believing that Democrats were the stuff. Like if you were black, you had to vote Democrats. Like that's literally how I grew up.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fair enough. So what specific policies would you say made you not just go from I like Trump because I know his name and I'm kind of being countercultural by voting for him in 2016 to like I am Team Trump and I rock with these policies? What specific policies?
Specific policies. I like how he handled COVID. I mean, a lot of people will try to say, oh, he handled COVID terribly, 200,000. But I mean, no one's ever really had to go through something like this, like that rapidly. I like how he dished out the money for how he dished out every American could get $1,000 and what was it, $1,200. I mean, he's the only president I know that put money in my pocket when I needed it. So like, I like the fact that I mean, obviously, it's really, abortion's a really hard subject to tackle for, like, it's really hard to really do stuff about it because it's so many people that but I like how he's putting people in places for future change. He's making it more difficult to do that. And like, as a Christian, I don't know if I'm a conservative, I'm just a Christian. In my eyes, I'm just a regular Christian. I believe what I believe. One thing I do believe is that abortion isn't right. Like, as a Christian, that's just my personal belief. If you don't believe it, I'm cool with that. It's whatever. But my thing is, I rock with the fact that he's doing stuff actively in my eyes that can possibly change something about it in the future. Like, it's not, you can't just boom. Like you said, it can't be one person that destroys America. But like over time, I feel like you can change that law with the way he's doing it. He's putting more people in these positions of judges. He's putting his people in there. He's getting a lot of the extremists out and a lot of the conservatives in. And I rock with that. Like, that's just.
Okay, so let's there's a lot you covered there. So just historically, Obama did send out stimulus checks in 2009. I just Googled it. So I don't know how old you were. You're younger than me, but I remember getting a stimulus check. I think George Bush sent out stimulus checks too. But there was after the recession of '08, there was a stimulus check sent out by Obama as well. So, the only president you remember. How old were you in 2009?
2009, I wasn't even old enough to vote. I was like, what, 13, maybe 14?
Okay, fair enough. So let's talk about COVID, because you said you liked how he handled COVID. Some people say that he dropped the ball on COVID.
Right.
I think that the tough part was, and by the way, I am not for like lockdown indefinitely. I think what our governor in California is doing is pretty wild with his like Thanksgiving restrictions. And I think most Democrats would say this man's out of his mind, telling people they got to wear a mask at Thanksgiving dinner, right? But I think if we're going to be honest about COVID, he didn't lock down travel from from Europe, which is where COVID came over from. He locked down travel from China. And by the way, what I'm not saying is that Hillary would have done a better job or Biden would have done a better job. I'm saying in terms of how he handled COVID, he downplayed it, and he went on record and said he downplayed it. He said he didn't want to cause a panic. He said on a leaked recording, which I don't know if you've heard it, but there was a leaked recording that came out that he was basically saying, man, this thing is deadly, it's dangerous, da-da-da. So he was privately worried, but publicly downplaying, saying it would be over by Easter. Then it was over by the summertime. And I think the tough part is, hindsight's always 20/20, right? But had we taken a more of a, hey, let's lock down hard nationally for 3-4 weeks, everybody go into a mask mandate, arguably that, we could have been in a similar spot where, a South Korea is or what have you. So I think the COVID thing is really tough, especially for folks that have lost someone to COVID. I think that's a really, really tough angle. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, I don't know how anybody could have handled COVID.
Hard for anybody to handle a situation like that. Like you said, like I honestly think he did what he could do, like to not cause mass panic, not causing, like, I just think of what would happen if Biden was in. Like, he's already talking about shutting down restaurants, shutting down certain things, and then backtracking and saying I won't, and then going back to I will. And it's just like, eventually we have to come out of this, like, this COVID thing, because like, we can't let it dominate what we're doing. And that's another reason I rock with him right there, is because
what do you think the right move is for COVID?
I think, like I said, I'm not the president, so like,
sure.
I would say I agree with what he's doing. I mean, there's lesser restrictions being made. There's more. They're trying to get a cure. They're trying to get this thing worked out as best they can. I just don't believe that we should go back to not having church services, not being able to worship. I mean, it's crazy. It's like, it's literally, in my eyes, I'm a Christian, so I get my source from God. So if I can't go to church and I can't worship, I can't sing, where 2 or 3 are gathered. Like, if I can't do that, like, you're literally taking my power away from like healing. Like, you're taking my prayer, like, you're taking my time to get spiritually revitalized. And like, I honestly don't agree that we should be closing down churches, closing down all this stuff that we need to be functioning. And I mean, wear masks, do the 6 feet thing. I mean, I don't understand why we can't just be safe and have it both ways.
Do you
Like,
think that the fact that there was an outbreak at the White House, there was outbreaks at some of his events, that maybe he was a little reckless with COVID?
right,
The fact that like cats didn't have masks on, they were indoors. Like, do you think
fact,
that was, you know, because that doesn't like, because people are looking to him to lead, and so he was kind of late on
right,
the mask thing, and then there was a couple
right.
staffers that got it, and then there were some rallies where there were some outbreaks.
And it, like I said, it's hard to contain it. It's hard to do. I mean, he's a human being, so it's like you can't. Like, people are human beings. Like, at the end of the day, like I said, they're doing their best to fix the situation. It's like, yo, if you got it, like, he got it. But it's like, what are we supposed to do for the rest of our lives? Live in fear about it? Or is he supposed to, like, yo, I'm wearing a mask, I'm gonna be in a bubble in the White House forever? Like, I'm not going to this thing, I'm not going to that thing. Like, yo, it's like we can't live in hiding forever. Like, that's
I'm not saying live in hiding. That's not what I'm saying at all.
Right.
I'm saying I go to the gym every day. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
I wear a mask and I practice social distancing. I'm not moving out and about. I'm not going to concerts. When I go to church, it's outdoors. Our church, my home church, started an outdoors service.
Right.
There's another one, another church plant that I attend that's also outdoor service. And granted, it's different in California. I understand our weather here
Right.
allows us to do outdoor services. I'm just saying Christians who are like, we have to meet and sing and not wear masks because it's religious persecution. I don't know about that, bro. Like, that's a stretch. Like, I get that, man, sometimes we give up too much liberty in the name of protection,
That's
but
true.
it's kind of wild.
Breaks in their services, but like, it's up to us to like if Biden can sit there and wear a mask and not get COVID, stay 6 feet, we can do it. We just got to be mature enough to make our own. Like, we can't expect the government to say just zoom in and just, hey, don't do this, don't do that. That's where I draw the line. We should be adults. We should be able to stay our 6 feet, keep our distances, remain healthy. Like, we don't, like, I know some churches who are having services 6 feet apart. Like, there's ways to go about it. I'm not saying like we need to go to services, no mask, sit close to each other. I'm saying there's ways we can adjust. I'm like, and I feel like that's the way Trump is doing. I don't like the other extreme that I feel like is on the other party is, yo, we got to close everything down. And I just feel like that's the way they're headed. Like, because we want to get a second stimulus check. Like, that's
Sure.
the thing.
Sure.
Like,
And the COVID thing has definitely been politicized. Even
sure.
to the mask wearing, which I think is unfortunate. I think you should wear a mask, and I don't think that's a big request, especially if you're older, you have pre-existing conditions, or you're going to be around somebody with pre-existing conditions, which is a lot of people. So, I'm just not one to be like, I need this liberty to go to church. Like, I think we are the church. I think, if I'm honest, I feel more connected to my Christian friends in the middle of COVID than I have ever, or at least in 5 or 6 years, to be honest with you. So I think COVID this season has exposed a lot for a lot of us. But I get it what you're saying. I think at some point you have to let people be adults and take some risks. It's just, it seems like it's one extreme or the other. It's like, yo, we're gonna be reckless and gather indoors without masks and fight for this liberty, or we're gonna go and sway the other extreme and just lock down and never leave our house and hide, right? And I think I think neither extreme is right, and it's a bummer that it's politicized. Let me ask you this. Okay, so on the issue of when it comes to social issues, when it comes to refugees wanting to come over and Trump limiting refugee access, when it comes to issues of police brutality, it seems like, or DACA, for example, right? So he kind of tried to get rid of DACA. It seems, and I guess those are all three separate issues, so I don't mean to lump them all in. But as a Christian, what I'm really talking about is the least of these, right? The Statue of Liberty says, give us your poor, your weak, right? So America is historically, and I'm a refugee. Like, I came out here from Azerbaijan, which is right now there's tension in Azerbaijan between between the Arzis and the Armenians, and the Karabakh region, and it's a mess out there, right? So that's near and dear to my heart. But when it comes to refugees, like people on a lower end of the totem pole in terms of society, not wealthy people, not successful people, not entrepreneurs, right? Not middle class people. Do you think he nails it there? Because I think he drops the ball, and that's one of the reasons why I think. And I don't think he just drops the ball. I think he can be divisive and combative, and whether he knows it or not, some of it can be interpreted as dog whistling.
And
how do you feel about that?
It's for sure a sticky situation, like allowing people into our borders, and things like that, and allowing people to come over. I mean, because with the pandemic, it's even more a stickier situation because it's just like, what do you want? Like, what should we do? Like, at the end of the day, it's like, what should we do? And that's exactly why I couldn't be president. And like I said, I'm not gonna be like, in my personal opinion, like, I would say it would be necessary to close off certain borders right now. Like, it would be necessary.
I'm not talking about right now in the middle of COVID. I mean, there were Syrian refugees that were looking to come over. Right. There was people from South America, from Central America that were not South America, Central America that were coming up. Right. And again, I'm not saying all those people are all legitimately seeking asylum. A lot of those people did come as families, and that there is truth to that. And there was also some gang members that were coming up. So I don't know the statistics. I can't give you the breakdown. But it seems like there isn't a heart by MAGA supporters for the less fortunate.
What makes it seem like that, though? Like,
well, I specifically with the issue of the Syrian refugees, the issue of the folks coming up from Honduras, the folks coming up from South. I don't know what other Central America countries there were, but there's that caravan that was coming up, and then it was the kids end up getting locked in cages and separated from their families. That was a big outcry. There was pressure on Melania to speak up, right? So there's that issue, which is a very like, ooh, and I get it. Like, he didn't say that all Mexicans were rapists and drug dealers. You know what I mean? The ICE raids. Like intentionally seeking out people who were here and maybe have babies here. You know what I mean?
Like Trump, like some of these issues were going on before he was in presidency. Is like, as far as so it's like I said, he's a man. Like, I'm not a politician. I'm not a president. You got an average Joe in your hands. Like, I'm not for everything. Like, if I was for everything of one person, that would be wrong for me. Like, so like me saying
I appreciate that answer. So you would say maybe on some of those issues you may disagree with him on some of those.
I'm not gonna say everything Trump does is perfect, but I can't say that it's all up to him too, because everything is a process. If it was happening before he was in the presidency, like, what makes people expect him to be able to just change situations? We have a whole pandemic going on top of that. So it's just like,
I wasn't talking about in the context of the pandemic. I'm talking about in the context of his presidency and just weaving in some of his positions on some of these like issues we should care about as believers, right? If we're talking about refugees, people seeking asylum, children, that whole thing, whether or not Obama and Biden built the cages or whoever built the cages, that was not a good look to have kids separated from their parents, have kids in cages. I'm not saying that was all him. I'm just saying it just seems like the ball was dropped in that specific area. How do you feel? Go ahead. Did you want to chime in on that? Because I got another question.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So you would say, I don't know. We can't put it all on him, but maybe you would disagree with him on some of that. How do you feel he handled the social unrest after George Floyd and the protests?
Him aligning himself with police officers. I mean, once again, another sticky situation. He's like, he's gonna align himself with the police officers. He's gonna represent the police force. And there's a lot that went into that, like a lot. Like, my father was in a situation like that. He didn't die, but he was in a situation like that. He was pinned down to the ground. And like, there's a lot of bad apples in the police force. So it's just like, do you sit here and say all police are bad, we need to defund police, or do you figure out what the root cause of the problem is? Now, you're saying, how did he handle that situation? He aligned himself with the police officers, and I believe that was the right thing to do. I don't see why. What else would he do? What else could he have done in that situation?
I think he could have acknowledged that there are systemic issues within law enforcement. And I'm not saying all police officers are bad. I am very pro police. I love police. That's who I call, right? If anything goes down, I love the military. But to sit here and say that in the same way that sin is not just an individual to individual, that sin can corrupt cultures, that sin can corrupt systems, sin can corrupt groups of people, right? That you definitely have. This has came out multiple times where it's not just, oh, this police officer was burnt out and therefore he did this. No, there tends to come out on the back end of this stuff. The FBI goes into, we talk about Michael Brown and how Michael Brown, that was a bad example because Michael Brown didn't really have his hands up. Well, then they went in and they found like a history of racism in that specific police department. You talk about what's happened in Minneapolis. There's a history of brutal police misconduct. And here in Compton, they just recently came out with the Art Gonzalez being the whistleblower who came out and said, man, there was there's a police gang called the Executioners, predominantly Hispanic and white, and you have to kill somebody to get inked. You have to kill somebody on a job to get inked up, and he came out, blew the way. So this is not isolated, that there is a pattern, and unfortunately the way law enforcement is a tough job. There's not a lot of outlets. A lot of these social psychologists have broken down, and it doesn't seem like there's much of an acknowledgement to say, hey, yes, police officers generally go into it wanting to help people, and they do good stuff on the front end, but goodness gracious, there's a lot of bad departments out there that we've seen, and we don't talk about it. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't talk about it. He won't acknowledge it. And I'm not saying and by the way, even the defund the police thing, there's spectrums of that, right? And poor branding on their part. So if you look at like the left, progressive left, right? Like the progressive left, go to the Young Turks, for example, really far left website, and listen to them on defunding the police. And they will tell you flat out, abolishing police is stupid. Like, this is dumb. So even people on the far left will tell you, no, this is dumb. You don't abolish police. Defunding the police, poor branding, is different than abolishing police. Defunding police is saying, hey, maybe we can cut back on some of these, surplus tanks and surplus military gear these police get, and we can restructure some of that payment and send a social worker on a mental health call. I don't know if this is true. The statistic I heard, I don't know if it's true with the caveat with this, but I heard somewhere of upwards of 90% of the calls that police respond to are related to some type of mental health issue and are non-violent calls. So we're not going and dealing with these everybody's violent, got a gun, they need the SWAT team. A lot of these is like, someone's having a mental breakdown. Somebody's in the middle of an episode, right? And so, and there was a kid in Utah that was killed, the white kid in Utah that was killed. There was, like, every other week we hear of a parent calls, and it's just, it's unfortunate, right? So what I'm saying is, in that, I don't expect him to say police are bad. I'm saying acknowledge that there's an issue, and let's figure out how to fix it.
Right. I don't think he hasn't really acknowledged it with his actions. It's a lot of times people want him to say, I'm not racist. But he doesn't show that he is racist. So it's just that's a real sticky situation with the whole shooting. And should he acknowledge, what does he have? What do you want him to say? That's where I'm getting
I want him to say, hey guys, we have some issues with policing, and I'm going to set aside funding to create more community oversight
Right.
when there's these disturbances, to create a federal mandate so every police officer has to have a body cam, and if you tamper with it, you're done. Hey, duty to intervene. We're going to create a federal mandate for a duty to... I haven't said anything about banning chokeholds, by the way, but a duty to intervene if a police officer is wilding out. Federally mandated body cams instantly dissolves the Breonna Taylor situation, by the way, which those police officers turned off their body cams, and then the guys who showed up had body cams. So it wasn't like they didn't have body cams; they just turned them off for some weird reason because of a tactical disadvantage. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, can't some of this be solved in the city? Like, why does it always go straight to the presidency? Like he's even called out some of the leaders in these cities. It's like, why does it go straight to him? Like, yo, I need Trump to do this. It's not always that broad. Like, we have different like stages of like leaders. So why can't this be handled in the city? Is my thing. Like, I never got that.
Well, because there are some things that are federally mandated, like there's a federal minimum wage and then there's a local minimum wage, right?
So
there's certain federal laws. Go ahead.
So the whole George Floyd incident should have been like a federal incident.
Well, they're going to deploy the FBI, for example, in Kentucky, Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky. They've sent the FBI to do an investigation of that department, just like they did in Ferguson, and they're going to see what the FBI comes back with, because the way that was handled, there was some problematic stuff. So there are times where if something looks messy, and you're like, the district attorney didn't want to bring up charges against the police that killed Breonna Taylor. Nobody was held accountable. There was only these other charges the grand jury didn't indict. And then it came out afterwards when the grand jury came out and said, we didn't even have a chance to charge the police. You see what I'm saying? That's something that should be investigated probably federally. Why was that district attorney now trying to bring up, was there precedent, so on and so forth. So there are some degree to a federal precedent. I'm just saying if we really care about police brutality, those are some easy fixes I just threw out.
There should definitely be more acknowledgement. There should definitely be more acknowledgement. But at the end of the day, like I said, it comes down to Biden. It comes down to Biden or Trump. So it's like, what do you want? Like, I can't defend everything Trump does. Sure. I can't like a Biden supporter can't defend everything Biden does.
Sure,
so it's just
of course.
It can be more acknowledgement that this has happened in our community. Like, it's happened to me, and but I don't expect the president.
You've had an issue with police interaction.
Right. My father got pinned down by police from I think he was coming out of Walmart. Police that suspected him something. They pinned him down. I got a whole video on it. It's on Instagram. But it was similar to the George Floyd.
You
saw I saw it with my. They put their knee on their neck. It happened around, when did it happen? Like maybe right before, it was like 3 years ago actually. I think Trump was getting it was like 3 years ago. When it happened, and it was just a Trump. The only difference between him and George Floyd was he didn't die. That was literally the only difference. My father didn't die. And there's video of the dude almost like my dad was screaming, man. But these incidents, it's just like, yo, I can be mad at my president, or I can be mad at myself for not getting more involved in my own community, getting more involved with who's elected, what's going on in my own community. And it's just like, yo, you got to start small at some point. We can't keep blaming bigger heads, because sometimes they can't account for every little incident.
That's fair. So let's get on some of the things we would probably agree on when it comes to the issue of abortion. You're saying because he is pro-life that aligns more with your religious, with your faith view, and therefore you're aligned. So you can say, man, I kind of disagree with him on the handling of refugees and immigration. This stuff over here with police, maybe that is a federal issue, maybe it's not. When it comes to these things over here, abortion, you're like, yo, this is something that is super important to you. Right.
I would say abortion is important to me. But I do know it's hard to deal with it as a president when everybody's coming at you from different angles. Are you pro-abortion? Are you not against abortion? He has to kind of tread carefully. But from his actions, I've seen him do stuff. He's put people into positions in the Supreme Court. He's put 200 some judges, new judges in,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like this. He's putting more conservative people into these positions for future changes, because you can't just say abortion's done. He can't just come up with the law, or somebody can just come up with the law and say abortion's done. It's going to take a long period of time to get to that point. And from what I know from his past comments of him actually agreeing with abortion, like agreeing with it, with like not having abortion, and them having to backtrack a little bit because the voters are coming at him hard. And I can see that he's actually looking ahead and not like he's putting more conservatives in and more like people extremists out.
Sure.
And
sure.
I'm
not sure. Somebody. I believe he defunded Planned Parenthood. Somebody is saying that that abortions are up under him, which I would have to verify that. I'm not sure. Somebody in the comment section said that.
I gotta verify that. Recall that being.
Yeah.
But him actually saying that he doesn't want us to pay for it with our taxes is another thing I stand for. Like,
yes,
why should I?
I would agree with you.
Why should I have to pay my money for someone to have an abortion for something I don't even believe in? And that's another thing that I like, restricting the federal funding. Like, that's one thing I really rock with them for. Like,
so here's where we agree. We would agree that I don't want federal money or my taxes going towards that, right? So we would agree there. What I would say is Roe v. Wade was passed by a majority Supreme Court of Republicans and conservatives. They subsequently had a majority Republican Supreme Court in '92, and then when Bush 1 was president, and then the last part I would say is that he said in the debate, and whether he was capping or not, but he basically said that's not on the docket. We're not looking to overturn it. So I would say yes to don't federally fund or subsidize abortions. I think that's a great point. But I think the notion that the Republicans have any true desire to get rid of abortion, to overturn Roe v. Wade, I just don't think that that's ever going to happen in our lifetime. What I think is going to happen with abortion is the technology is going to keep getting better and better and better and better and better. And eventually we'll get to a point where anybody that doesn't want to have an abortion will have some type of contraceptive or birth control that will completely alleviate that, and it'll be readily available, and technology will solve that, not a Supreme Court, right? I think that's to me seems more like a pragmatic solution to it. Like, I think that's where it's going. The fact is, though, that abortions were in historic lows under Obama. Obama brought abortions to historic lows. And that's because he had a legitimate plan for sexual education, for contraceptives, for all of these other things. And so they did hit a historic low under. So I think I hear you in terms of restricting. And again, I'd have to look at, did he fully defund Planned Parenthood? How did all that work out? Sex education and reducing it, right? Because here's the thing. I don't expect folks who don't know Jesus to live to my moral and ethical standards, right?
Right.
At the same time, I don't want my taxpayers going towards the termination of pregnancies. So if there's a way to educate somebody so that they are less likely to get pregnant, if there's a way to create a economy that allows more upward mobility, then I think that is a good thing. So I think we would agree on abortion. To me, it's just not the main issue, right? So I'm looking at it overall from a macro standpoint.
It's one of them.
Yeah, it's a big one. But I'm saying when I factor in the fact that they've had multiple times to overturn Roe v. Wade and they haven't, that it's not even, they haven't even moved the needle. When I factor in that they actually went lower under Obama, I think it's kind of one of those things that's like, yeah, like I understand why that would be a main issue for somebody. For me, it is not. Let's talk about how do you feel about him attempting to overturn Obamacare? Because that, to me, like that's how I went full time with music. A lot of people don't know this. There's a video I have called "The One Policy That Actually Changed My Life," and in 2010, 2011, 2012, I could have quit my job and started doing music, but at the time we couldn't afford health insurance on the free market. Health insurance on the free market was around $1,200 for our family. This is back in 2011. After Obamacare passed, we were able to get the same exact plan the same exact plan for, I think we pay $450 a month, Kaiser plan, reasonable copay, so on and so forth. Do you think that trying to pull back Obamacare without a clear plan of what is going to replace Obamacare, do you think that that's a good look in the middle of a pandemic?
Not necessarily. Not the future of like the healthcare. And I'm pretty sure they'll try to work something out. I mean, we don't know what they're planning right now. Like they could just be planning something now. Like, but my thing is with Obamacare, like I remember us struggling with that. Like my people, like from where I'm from, Obamacare was like the worst thing that could happen because like we couldn't afford it. Like that Obamacare literally forced you to get health insurance. Like we couldn't even afford health insurance where I came from. So like,
and he did,
like,
and to give Trump credit, he did lift that goofy penalty that people had to pay if they didn't have it. So to his credit, he did lift that, which was good.
We were forced to get this health care that we couldn't even afford and without or pay the penalty. And it was just like where I come from, like where I'm from, like it was terrible. Like I remember growing up, my grandmother, she could barely afford anything because she had to keep paying. It was like $200 a month, but at the time, that's a lot of money for her. Like raising all of us, like I didn't grow up immediately like medium rich I grew up poor. So like coming up, it was devastating for me. So like for me to hear him get rid of it in my mind, I'm thinking that's great because like for the people who can't even afford it without having to pay a penalty, like that's great. Like now I can pick what.
Yeah. And he lifted the penalty. He lifted that penalty, which I think was a good look. He didn't get rid of it. His own judges actually voted against him trying to get rid of it, which is hilarious. Right. The very judges he elected was like,
because some people actually, a lot of people actually rock with Obamacare, but a lot of people I know didn't. Like I said, people are born, like grew up in different culture, different areas, poor, rich, like in the middle, like. So
let me ask you this: you said you grew up poor. Do you think that his policies in terms of tax cuts for corporations, tax cuts for entrepreneurs, tax cuts for wealthy people and middle class people, do you think that those policies are conducive for upward mobility from an economic standpoint?
In my eyes, I've made more money with Trump being president than anybody else. Like when Obama was president, I was not making this much money. I got more. I don't have to pay as many taxes, and I feel like I'm getting more back. And it's just like, to me, it's been a blessing, like just getting all this money back. Not taxing the rich. I mean, I think Hillary was trying to get some like the trickle down. I think she was calling it a trickle down.
No, that's actually Trump. Trump's policies are more Reaganomic based trickle down policies.
No, I'm saying Hillary was calling it the trickle down, like effect, wasn't it? Like Hillary calling it the trickle down effect. Trump was.
So trickle down is called right side economics. It's
right.
Nobody actually believes in trickle down because trickle down has been disproven at this point. But it's the idea that if you cut taxes for the wealthiest of Americans, that it'll trickle down to poor people, right? And so that's pretty much been disproven. But it's still a very common view in Republican and conservative tax policies is, hey, let's cut taxes for the wealthy people, and let's hopefully that stimulates the economy because wealthy people do pay I think the top 1% pay 40% of all taxes raised.
Right.
So they do pay a lot in taxes, but do you think that you making more, and by the way, I've made more under Trump as well, so but do you think that that's a byproduct of where we are in the trajectory of our careers, or do you think that is more just a byproduct of like his policies?
The last time I checked, the economy was doing better than ever. It was up 33%. So it's just like, I mean, it's working. Like at the end of the day, Trump is a businessman, and he's always been a businessman. So like when it comes to policies about money, I'm for him 100% because like that man was raised in a business. He has a business mentality, and like that's when it comes to any economic decisions, like I'm rocking with what he's doing. And like I said, 33% up. Like you can't beat that. Like I mean, the 4 years he's been here, we've been up 33% in our economy. So
and I don't know how much of that is a direct byproduct of his policies. So like Bush was like, we got new jobs, we got more jobs. But then you found out the types of jobs that Bush actually helped develop or were developed under him were like lower entry jobs, not more middle class jobs. So I don't know what kind of jobs Trump developed. I know the gig economy exploded under his presidency, stuff like Uber, stuff like Lyft,
Right.
DoorDash, that stuff exploded. So I can't call how many different, how good the economy did or did not get under him. But yes, when it comes to the stock market, definitely thrived under Trump, which is a fact.
Right.
But what I'm asking you is, do you think that his policies help poor people? His economic policies help poor people?
I feel like so. Everybody I know says it's happened. Like I said, he's the only president I know that's put and I know that anybody in like the streets where I'm from knows that he put $1,200 in our pockets. I don't know about the Obama check. I don't remember getting an Obama check. I don't remember my parents getting an Obama check. I just remember that Trump check that I got when COVID happened. I remember my taxes going lower. I know working at McDonald's, you can make more money working at McDonald's, and that's where we all kind of started from anyway. So it's just like, in my eyes, he's making it easier for somebody to come up out of making nothing. He's making it easier from somebody who's on just EBT, Medicaid, or just on Social Security, on disability. He's making it easier for somebody to come up because, like, with the way it was going, we were barely able to afford anything. We couldn't come out of poverty. So now he's like making lanes that we can get out of this problem. And now with the Platinum Plan, bro, like the dude's he's in his stride right now. I don't know why anybody would want to stop that stride. Like,
yeah. So let me ask you this about the Platinum Plan. Do you think that the Platinum Plan, which I think is a good plan, I wish it was a bit more specific, I just wish there was more details to it. And I think it's dope that Ice Cube helped work on it and all these different things. I think that's super dope. And if he gets reelected, I really do hope that he does, he does live up to that. Do you think that the Platinum Plan is evidence that such a thing as systemic or structural racism exists?
Some people say that it's a cop-out for the election, but like, okay. I've never seen him be racist. Like from before 2016 to now, never. And like, we're asking for plans like this. He's giving us plans like this. I don't recall Obama giving us a plan like this, giving like billions of dollars to the Black community. And like people say that all the time, but like I rock with it. I rock with the Platinum Plan. I rock with what he's doing because like he's giving, like I said, he's giving Black people a way to get up out of poverty, so we won't all be there. So I rock.
So context for Obama, they had a Republican Senate and House the first term, so it was difficult for them to get anything passed. They pretty much got everything shut down that they tried to do the first term. Second term, that's when he was able to get Obamacare passed, and I think he got some prison reform done. What I'm saying is the Republicans or conservatives or Trump himself tend to view racism as very person to person, right? You're racist if you wear a KKK flag, KKK shirt and hood, and you're like, it's person to person. I would think, and I don't mean to assume, but would you say that such a thing as structural racism or systemic racism exists? And I'm not saying everything is racist, and I'm not saying we needs to be equal output, or just because there's any disparities, it proves racism. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, do you think that racism has corrupted certain institutions in our society?
This is a topic that's been on my mind. I flip-flopped a couple times on this topic. Sometimes I view it as, like, just because I'm Black doesn't mean I got to struggle. Like, I can bring myself out of it. And sometimes I'll see, like, maybe this is a thing, because I see a lot of my, like, white friends doing good. They got their first house. They got their car. They're moving along. And I'm just like, why am I still here and they're there? Like, that topic kind of flip-flops for me. I would say there's a lot of prejudice against Black people, that we're violent, that a lot of Black people are violent. Like, a lot of people see Black people as violent. When it comes to systematic racism, there is definitely something built into the United States where it's harder to move up if you're Black. And that could be coming from prejudiceness. That could be coming from a lot of different things. I wouldn't say it's harder to be successful if you're black. I would say that it's possible to get out, but then again, it is like it depends where you're from. Like,
Sure.
if my father was already got a head start in life, he's already like from my grandfather down, they were already building. Me, my father was in jail, my mother in jail. I started at the bottom. But if my father was the black Bill Gates and my mom was the white Bill Gates, like, so I might have had a shot, you know? Like, think of Jay-Z's kids. They won't have to worry about nothing. And so they're going to grow up thinking, yo, there's no systematic racism. All you got to do is just do life. But for us, coming from nothing, it's just like, yo, you're always going to feel like something's beating you down. But like, I know white people who also feel the same way as me. I know white people who come from nothing who feel like they can't get up. And like, I don't think that's a one person issue. I think a lot of people go through that. Like white people, black people, Chinese people, a lot of people go through this struggle. Like, I don't.
Do you? It sounds like it's something you're still processing and struggling with in terms of whether it's real or not. I know my in-laws. My wife's black. I think you know that. My in-laws both have done prison time and have definitely had some major setbacks, and their situation could definitely be traced back specifically to the war on drugs. A lot of people talk about Biden in the 1994 crime bill, which was terrible and disgusting, and what they did there, the Democrats did there. But a lot of that stuff goes pre that, the war on drugs by Reagan and Nixon, and how that radically, disproportionately affected black communities in the 80s and the early 90s, and you know, the 100-to-1 crack versus coke disparity, which wasn't adjusted until 2010 with the Fair Sentencing Act. So a lot of this stuff, you know, I think it's pretty obvious that something happened after redlining, after Jim Crow, after civil rights, that something happened that definitely affected black communities in a very negative way. What I'm saying is I think it's a bummer that most Republicans, not all, or most Trump voters, not all, won't acknowledge that, won't acknowledge the historical framework of that, yet propose stuff like the platinum deal, which kind of makes my point. Like, if there was no disparities because of structural issues, why would the government step up and try to give money to solve structural issues?
And these are things I think about too. Like, if there isn't an issue with systematic racism, why is he coming up with a platinum plan? Why is there a need for a platinum plan? Like, and I agree with you on that. It's just like, yeah, like, but then there's also other things that I see, like one-on-one with people that I see that go through. So it's just like, what if he's coming up with this plan because he feels pressured in the fact that it may be systematic racism? Like, he could just feel, all these people are saying black people are starting at the bottom. They need help. So we got to do something about it. Like, what if there isn't systematic racism, and in reality, it's just people telling him that he needs to do this. We need help. That's what I get out of it. Like, it could be.
Yeah, I guess I think here's the thing. I think Trump did what he had to do to get elected the first time. I think he had to be combative and divisive at times. I wish the second time he acknowledged some of these issues. Like, I think if he would have came out and been like, look, police brutality is trash, we have to fix it. Hey, systemic racism is trash, therefore I'm doing the platinum plan. And, you know, a lot of it can be traced back to the Reagan policies and the Nixon policies. I think if he did that, I legitimately think he could have won this election free and clear. But I think because he didn't do that, I think it's the way it's looking like is it's going to be tough for him to win. And Biden too, by the way. Like, I still don't feel like Biden has clearly owned how messy the 94 bill was. He kind of shrugs it off and deflects. And I think there needs to be some ownership of that.
And if I was Trump, I would have just said, yo, I'm not racist. But I mean, like, you can't, like, I can't speak for him. He can't speak for himself. The Proud Boys Stand Down thing. But it's just like, yo, he could have just said I'm not racist, but he does a lot of stuff that shows he's not racist. He said before in previous interviews that he doesn't believe in he doesn't believe in he believed that racism is a thing. I don't see an implication that he is racist, and I don't know why that question keeps getting to him. Why are we not asking if Biden's racist? Because Biden's been racist for the 47 years he's been in office. So like at the end of the day, my vote is going to come down to Biden or Trump. And like at the end of the day, Trump believes in more things, and I don't agree with everything that Trump does. Who does? Who agrees with who agrees with everything Biden says? But like when it comes down to it, Biden's been racist since like all the crime bill, him saying that he doesn't want his kids in a jungle and going to school. Like it's just a bunch of. He said, I believe he said one time. He said, what was it? He said that. Color, what was it? I think I wrote that thing down. Hold on. He said poor kids can be just as good as white kids, and that to me, I was just like, yo. So are you telling me brown, white, brown, black, like Latino, Hispanic, like what make poor kids can be better, almost like just as intelligent as white? It's just like the comments that he says, like just rub me the wrong way. And like the 47 years, I've seen nothing but negative stuff when it comes to like the black side of things, when it comes to helping the black communities from Biden, and when it comes to Trump, I just see positive stuff, and that's what it comes down to, because I can't sit here and agree with everything Trump says. I can't, but like I can rock with more Trump than Biden.
Let me put it this way. I think in Trump's definition of what racism is, which is a person-to-person prejudiced or biased, I think in his mind, he is not racist. In his mind, like he doesn't believe that this person is superior to that person, right? In that definition. Where I think he maybe misses it is some of the policies or some of the apathy to bring change to systems like law enforcement, or some of the statements that can be interpreted by white supremacist or white nationalist groups as dog whistling, quote unquote, is what some would say. He may not be personally racist in using the N-word, but has racism evolved and it's more covert now, and it's more microaggression based, and it's more right. And I'm not saying everything is racist. I'm not one of those people. I'm not saying systemic racism is at fault for everything. You guys watch my channel long enough. You don't, I will not say that. And I'm not saying that just because there's disparities of outcome that's even evidence of racism in every situation. I'm saying that when you look at his history with the Central Park Five, right, and this first time running a thing was him, holding a newspaper. His first thing that he was publishing was him trying to get these boys in New York, these young teenagers, these kids. I mean, they were really like 15, 16 years old kids, trying to get them the death penalty for raping this woman, and then down the road, DNA proved that they did it. That's the whole documentary about them. So that's what I'm saying. So when people say Trump endorses or supports racist ideal, I don't think they necessarily mean he is KKK white hood racist. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I get it, and I don't know his heart, but I'm saying I could understand why people would say that. You know what I mean?
But like my thing is, it's a lot of assuming going on. A lot of assuming that he's racist. Yeah. Like,
and some of it is not fair. And I did a video talking about the fine people on both sides hoax. Like I did a video on that here, and how that, like, he actually, if you read the full quote, he actually condemns white supremacy, and he has condemned white supremacy and white nationalist groups. So I agree with you. I think some of it is unwarranted, and I don't think he gets a fair
a lot of people have been told
from the media.
Like a lot of people have been told by other people that he's racist, and it like spreads like this guy is racist. Don't vote for him. And a lot of media has a lot over it too. The media calls him racist. Is Trump racist? It racist Trump. Like anytime I turn on CNN, all I see is Trump racist? Racist remarks from Trump. Like, but they don't talk a lot about Biden and what he's been doing, like in the media. Yeah, and that's what.
Okay, so let's go a little deeper. Because I think this would be interesting. So. Video came out yesterday, I think, or I believe it was yesterday, where your buddy Marcus Rogers, who's a friend of yours, you guys go to the same church, right?
Right.
He had a video kind of going at Lecrae a little bit, and and people tagged me in it, wanted me to react to it. So I guess this is my reaction to it. And I don't really, again, I don't have a dog in the fight. I say this all the time, like, and it's a Dave Ramsey quote, like, what happens in my house and in your house is way more important than what happens in the White House, right? So I don't think, neither of these guys is gonna change my life. And if most folks understand how our three branches of government work and how stuff gets passed, I'm not worried about tomorrow. I'm just kind of like, let's just get through it so we can stop being so nasty to each other. That's kind of my heart, right? But your boy Marcus Rogers came out, kind of made a video going at Lecrae a little bit. Didn't personally attack him, but it was this point the way I disagree with him, and maybe me and you disagree a bit, is just this idea of prophetic voices, quote unquote, saying that God told them that Trump is going to get reelected. And I said, hey, man, like, it's fine to share your opinion. You've been sharing your opinion, and we could have a reasonable conversation about it and say, yeah, if I'm honest, I'm unsure about these parts, Ruslan. And I'll be like, man, if I'm honest, I like Trump in these areas, right? And we could have an opinion conversation. But it sounds like Marcus Rogers, and you can clarify, but it sounds like he basically came out and said, Trump's going to be president, and he's God's choice for president because prophetic voices have said he's going to be president. And you don't really find that problematic. Like, because my thing is like, what if? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would say no. I don't necessarily. I know Marcus personally. I pray with this man. I know I've seen some of his prophecies come to light, and I do believe there are modern day prophets, and I do believe there are modern day false prophets. But like Marcus isn't one of those false prophets. Like I know this man personally, and like God says, acknowledge God in all your ways, and He'll direct your steps. And I'm just like, yo. At what point do we start acknowledging God in all our ways? When do we have that one-on-one conversation with God about politics? Like, why is it wrong for someone to say, yo, God told me Trump's going to be president? Why is it wrong for that? Like, I don't, and I get it that some people label that as toxic Christianity, but my thing is, it's just like, if we're not having those one-on-one conversations with God, what are we doing? Like, why are we not talking to God about it?
I'm not saying we shouldn't talk to God about it. I'm saying I would put, it's like this. Like, I believe God's ultimately sovereign. I believe God's ultimately in control. And I believe God's in control of who is going to win the World Series. I believe ultimately God was in control of that. I believe God was in control of who's going to win a championship, the NBA championship, which I watched. I believe God's going to be in control of whoever gets elected to be the next president, right? I think the notion that God told me, like if I said, hey, man, God told me the Dodgers are going to win the World Series, right? Like, that just sounds weird. And then what do we do with that? What do we do with that if it doesn't come to pass? Do I then get dismissed as a false prophet?
A lot of Christians are called weird. Like, so I don't know if you know, but Marcus is a Pentecostal. So am I. We really believe, like we speak in tongues, we do all that. Like, we're more into the spirit world. Like, we talk more about, like, yo, I spoke to God. Like, we pray that God can speak to us. Like, we pray for those messages. So when I hear somebody saying, yo, I've been praying about this, I've been praying with my brothers and sisters that God told me that Trump's going to be president, I can rock with that. Like, especially if I know it's Marcus. I know Marcus isn't a false prophet. I have not heard one evangelist say, yo, I've been speaking to God and Biden's going to be president. Oh, I've been speaking to God and this third party is going to be. I have not heard that. I've only heard Trump, like Trump people saying that. So it's just like, and in a certain stance, you have to use your discernment.
But do you understand why only Trump people would say that?
I could say. Wait, you're saying why do I think only Trump people would say that?
Yeah, why do you think only Trump?
I don't think some of like Marcus isn't a Trump person. He doesn't. No.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying Trump, in the same way that Biden, like, picked Kamala Harris, who is an awful candidate, to pander to black people, right, and to pander to women, is in the same exact way they picked Mike Pence and gave Trump his evangelical speaking points to pander to Christians. This is historical religious right stuff. So again, hey, I'm not saying the prophecies are wrong. Hear me out. Hear me loud and clear, Kanan. I'm not saying the prophecies are wrong. I'm just saying the phrase God told me. Not, hey man, I've been praying about it and I feel led. I don't have no problem saying, hey man, I feel led. Hey man, I've been praying about it and man, the Spirit is just is stirring me and this is kind of what I think I'm hearing from God. Right? You see how all that is softened and all that's more humble? When you say God told me, you're literally making your words equivalent to God's words. Like God told me this. And the truth is, we know that when we look at a Jonathan Cahn, when we look at a Pat Robertson, when we look at all these folks who have gone on record and said, God told me regarding political matters. And I did a Pat Robertson video breaking down the times he was wrong all throughout the 80s, just wrong. Jonathan Cahn talking about that, we're going to, the blood moons and the stock market is going to crash during the blood moons. None of that stuff happened, right? I just think when we start saying that phrase, you're really opening up yourself to some serious ego narcissism, because sometimes, sometimes it's just your thoughts. Sometimes it's your feelings. Sometimes it's the bad pizza you had last night. Right. You know what I'm saying? And so that's as a Christian, all I'm saying is like, I think we got to be careful when using that word. And specifically when something as big as the election, where, if we're wrong, if Marcus is wrong, if all these guys are wrong, are we going to keep just scales and keep that same energy to be like, hey, that man was wrong, and now we need to really examine his entire, because you're speaking very boldly on behalf of God. That's what I'm saying before. And by the way, I am charismatic. By the way, I've spoken in tongues. By the way, I believe in the gifts of the Spirit. By the way, I believe God speaks to me. I do believe God speaks to me. You just will never hear me say, hey, K9, God told me to tell you. Like, I just won't do that.
You're laughing, but in my world, like in my Christian world, that's normal. It's normal for someone to say, God told me to pray for you about this. God told me to pray for you about your heart. God told me you have some liver issues. Let me pray for that. And like, it's normal in my world, in the Pentecostal. I don't know what religion anybody is. To me, I'm a Christian. Pentecostalism is just like where I reside in. That's just what I rock with. Like, and like, to me, it's just like, that is normal. That's normal for somebody to just say, God told me this about it. God told me you're going to get that promotion. God told me, like, it's just normal for me. Like, I don't.
Do you think it's humble? Do you think it's edifying? Do you think it's reflective of how, you know what I'm saying? Like,
if God told you something, I don't believe there's a humbleness about it. Like, if you're going around saying, God's telling me this, God telling, like, it's a different. And it comes to, like I said, there's false prophets. There are going to be people that say stuff like that, and it's not true. It's not true at all. And
what about when God tells somebody that person was going to be their spouse? We've heard these horror stories. God told me this person was going to be my spouse. God told me so-and-so was going to be my spouse. Then they find out so-and-so is married. So-and-so is already married. But God told them.
You said it could be just a bad pizza you ate. But like I said, it's up to you to discern if it's God or not. And it's up to the person who is listening to you to discern if it's God or not. Like, I'm not going to say, this person, like, somebody could say, come up to me today and say, I believe Biden's going to be president. It doesn't mean I have to believe that. Like, you could go your other way.
So let me ask you this. So what happens if Marcus is wrong?
If Marcus is wrong?
By the way, hold on. Let me back up. Let me just take a step back. I'm not saying he didn't say God told him that. To be fair, he didn't say God told me that Trump is going to be. He said, "Do you think it's all these prophetic voices?" He basically said it, but he didn't directly say it. But let's just say he did say it. What happens in you said this is your world. What happens in your world when someone makes a bold statement? God said we're going to make $1 million for the church fund, and $1 million don't come in. What do y'all do with that?
It depends on who it is to me, because like in my walk with God, my pastor comes first. If my pastor was to come to me and say, Khalil or K9 or whatever, he calls me Khalil because that's my name. Mm-hmm. I believe God's going to be, God told me that Trump's going to be president. I would rock with it because that's my connection to God. My pastor is everything in my life. It's me. It's my wife.
No. I'm not saying you shouldn't rock with it. I'm saying what happens if that person's wrong. That's my question. Like, what happens next? If the election comes tomorrow and I don't know who's going to win. We could look at the electoral maps. It seems like it's stacked against him. if Trump does not win tomorrow, what does that do to all the people in your life who told you that Trump was going to win?
Well, there's not a lot of people in my life that told me Trump was going to be president based on God. There's not a lot of people in my life. Like you said, Marcus kind of beat around. He kind of just said certain things. Yeah, he never really said Trump's going to be president. Now, that lady that you saw in the video, I believe when I watched the Biden interview, she said it, but I don't know her. I don't know her at all. So I can't really give a fair assessment because no one in my life, and even my pastor has alluded to him liking Trump. No one that I know has specifically said Trump's going to be president. But if somebody like a Marcus or my pastor or one of my mentors told me, yo, I really prayed about this, God told me that this would happen, I would have to rock with it. And if it don't happen, then I'd be like, well, you were wrong, and keep it moving. Like, what are we supposed to do?
So that you just like, oh, it's all good. They you know?
I mean, you live and you learn. You look at this person, you're like, okay, well, maybe that guy did have like I said, you got to take everything with a stride, man. Like if my mentor came up to me and said Trump's going to be president and it didn't happen, I'd be like, okay, well, I got to watch out for this dude. And at the end of the day, I'm not letting anybody tell me what's going to happen. You know, I'm taking account to myself to figure out who I want to vote for. Like, I'm not.
I mean, this is not an attack on you, K9. I think very highly of you. If I didn't, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Right.
What I'm asking you, to take the question deeper, you have a lot of folks in the religious right, in the charismatic side, maybe not Marcus directly saying God told him. That's not what I'm saying. But what happens is when we walk around and we say God told me and stuff doesn't come to pass, the world is going to look at us and say, what God? Because y'all been wrong. Pat Robertson was wrong. Jonathan Cahn was wrong. All these prophetic voices Marcus is talking about. And I'm just saying when we look at these types of situations, and we both know people who have been in church, and that's why I'm saying we got to be careful, because man, that can quickly turn into spiritual abuse. God told me to tell you that's your wife. God told me to tell you need to give $10,000 to the church fund. God told me that can quickly turn into spiritual abuse. So all I'm saying is, man, if this thing doesn't come to pass, a lot of these evangelicals and pastors are going to be out here looking wild. And here's my issue with it. No one's going to say anything. No one's going to release a list of false prophets on Wednesday, you know what I'm saying? And just be like, look, here are all the people that predicted that Trump, and we should now not fund their ministries anymore until they repent. No one's going to do that. We're just going to look the other way and be like, oh, well, like maybe God, maybe.
My thing about that is the same thing Marcus is doing is the same thing like someone like Lecrae is doing. Like he's saying stuff, but he's not saying who he's voting for. Like it's the same thing. Like what are we going to do when Trump's president? Are we going to say the same thing about the Biden people? Like, oh, you guys were wrong. Like it's the same situation. So I don't know. It's what it is. Like if they're wrong, they're wrong. You don't see me saying God told me this, but at the end of the day, I do have a close relationship with God. And a lot of people have been told that Trump's going to be president, but they don't say anything. People are scared to say they like Trump. Like, and I don't get it. I don't get why people are so afraid to say they rock with Trump. Like, he's another candidate. What's the problem? Is it the media bashing you every single day, telling you that this guy is evil, he's bad? If you vote for him, you're racist. If you vote for him, you're not black. Like, is it that?
Yeah, I think all that's nonsense. And I've historically have had Trump friends in my life, Trump friends on this channel, Trump supporters, right? So I don't have a that part is nonsense. I'm saying if we're talking about Christianity, I've seen the phrase God told me abused way more than I've seen it used to affirm and edified. As somebody that comes from a charismatic background, I'm not Pentecostal, but my church is definitely charismatic. I've seen it used way more to abuse, to manipulate, to shame, to extort. Right? Historically, and that's what I mean by, man, it's toxic. And so that's all I'm saying. Now, I could be wrong. By the way, I'm cool if I'm wrong, and all the polls are wrong again, which could happen, and Trump beats him by a landslide, which could happen. Cool, man. Gosh, I gotta keep up with some of these prophets, because clearly They're getting something.
I hope something like that happens, because like a lot of people in the Bible talk to God. A lot of people in the Bible say, yo, God told me this. Moses told people what God told him. And it's just like, why are we so far away from that? Why are we so far away from communicating with God? Like, when do we get back to communicate? We need I feel like we should lean more in towards a relationship with God. Why are we going, yo, we shouldn't say that because this could happen. This could happen. Like, if that's the case, we're just living our lives in fear. Like, when are we going to start saying?
I'm not saying we shouldn't talk to God, K9. I'm saying we should talk to God. I'm just saying,
Right.
if we're going into situations and we're always expecting an audible voice to every single issue, instead of the word that he's given us, the 66 books, instead of the community that he's given us, right? Instead of looking at the ways we should be living, and we're always trying to get a new word, a new revelation, a new something, right? That we're usurping the word that he's already given us. That's all I'm saying. It's like, yo, God said a whole lot in his word. He's laid out how he wants us to live. He's given us community. He's given us counsel, and sometimes he definitely speaks to us directly. I'll give you a great example. I'll give you a very personal example. The first time I sat down with my wife, there's only a few times in my life where I feel like God spoke to me, and that was one of those times where I sat down and I felt, or I heard, not audibly, but in my mind and my spirit, I heard, "This is your wife." Right? And 4 years later, we were married, right? One of the few times that I've like audibly heard, "This is your wife." And a lot of other times he's speaking through people, he's speaking through conversations, he's speaking through his word. Sometimes I'll open up the Bible and I'll be reading Proverbs, and Proverbs has nothing to do with my situation, but boom, there'll be a specific verse that'll just completely encapsulate everything I'm going through and give me the solution. Right? God speaks through his word, God speaks through his community. So all I'm saying is, sometimes we could be on the God told me, desiring a new revelation, when a lot of what God's already said is already in the scripture, and all we really need to be doing is living God's way, and then we will be in God's will. We will live God's will if we live God's way, but we're sometimes not every Pentecostal or every charismatic, but we are always looking for, oh, I need the new revelation, right? And I'm just saying, in the same way that I don't think God is going to tell me if LeBron's going to get a 5th ring or not. I would love to see him get a 5th ring. Is in the same way I don't think God's walking around telling people that Trump's going to get a 2nd presidency. It's just bizarre. That's all I'm saying.
Tell someone that they shouldn't be doing that. Like, is it encouraging to tell someone that I don't think we should be doing this? Like, because what if God is talking through this person and we're just literally saying, I don't think you should be doing that. Like, what does it like do for us? How can we progress as Christians if we're like, if someone is claiming that they're speaking from God, if we're not testing it? Why not just test it? If he's really talking.
And I guess this is what I'm saying. When I have seen that phrase used, and I've waited, it comes back void and inaccurate more times than it comes back accurate. And I'm going to go deeper with you. The people in my life that hear from God the most don't tell me that God told them. They just tell me the revelation, and I know it, and I take their heed and I take their advice. They can see what's happening, and God will tell them, but they don't use that as a trump card. God told me. So there, you know what I'm saying? So I guess that's what I'm saying is, like, whenever I see that phrase used, it seldom comes back accurate, and it more than likely doesn't come back accurate. When I don't see that phrase used and someone gives me some wise counsel, and I know God spoke to them, and I know God probably gave them that little nugget. You know what I'm saying? They don't even have to say God told me. I could just tell. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, I don't want to stay on this topic. Shout out to Marcus Rogers. I'd love for him to come on the channel. You could tell him I invited him. I think he seems super cool, by the way. He seems super cool. I think we have to be careful with partisanship in general as leaders. Clearly, he's kind of a, I don't know too much about his stuff, but he definitely seems like a very conservative Trump guy, and that's for every right. You know what I'm saying? Give me 1 sec.
I think he just doesn't want grown men going into the bathroom of his daughters and things like that happen.
But again, so this is what I would say. To that. We cannot take the most radical examples from the far left and attribute to every single person as that, right?
stuff was actually taking place, though. Like they were allowing some of this stuff that actually.
Some of the yeah. What I'm saying is, if you listen to the average Democrat talk, if you actually are keeping up with the Young Turks, which are fairly progressive, they're fairly on the left, and you actually hear them out. If you're keeping up with a Joe Rogan, who is a Democrat, who is liberal, right? If you actually listen to a lot of those people, they're not on that. They're not on, a woman, a man can become a woman and then go into the UFC and fight as a woman. Like Joe Rogan's very against that. You know what I mean? Right. So I think we shouldn't take the most radical, wildest people on the left and say, oh, see, all people on the left want men in women's bathrooms, want to kill all babies, and want to worship the Illuminati and worship Satan. Like that's just a wild, in the same way we wouldn't take everybody on the right and say, oh, look, they're all crazy and they are all segregationist and they're all racist, right? There are people on both extremes and they're wild, and we shouldn't judge the sum by the extreme, and the extremes tend to be the loudest. In the same point, me and you sat here and we agreed, or I don't know if we agreed, but it seems like you acknowledge that there's some degree of systemic racism, structural racism. There's some degree of a reform needed in the law enforcement. I wouldn't take you and then say, oh, see, you're a Black Lives Matter, cultural Marxist, witchcraft, worshiping witches and ancestors. I wouldn't lump you into those people. You would just say, yeah, he's an independent thinker, and based on the evidence, he feels like this is true. And there are some people who also think this is true. There are some wild, loony stuff that we have to reject their organizations. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And like, once again, like, I respect being challenged. I respect being here, being challenged. Like, I'm not one to oppose somebody else. Like, when you tell, like, I'm learning stuff as I'm talking to you, and that's what we all should be doing. That's what we should all, like, and yeah. Just learning from each other.
So in closing, let me see if I can summarize some of this for you. You're voting for Trump because he is a bit more friendly towards liberty. He wants people to be more responsible when it comes to COVID. Hey, let's let the people decide how they're going to deal with it instead of forcing people or businesses to shut down. You think he did a solid by sending out the stimulus checks. You like his position on restricting and limiting the federal funding of abortion, his position with religious liberties and protecting some religious liberties and not punishing people who are churches, and not not making churches accommodate people they may disagree with. And you disagree with him on some things. You disagree with him maybe on his views on immigration and refugees, maybe his views on police brutality or his lack of speaking out for police brutalities, his views on maybe some of the social unrest that's happening. Is there anything else? I feel like that's a fair assessment. You're definitely like a critical thinker, and I appreciate that you didn't have like a response to every single thing. You know what I'm saying? No, I'm not being sarcastic. Somebody said, I don't know if you were asking me. I'm not being sarcastic. I feel like that's a fair representation of why you're voting for Trump.
I would say another major reason is just because the other side is just so bad to me. Like, I don't see how a president like Biden can run the president. Like, the reading off teleprompters, the not being able to finish sentences. It's just like, I just can't see a man. And then a vote for Biden is literally a vote for Harris, because I don't see him living that forward term. Like, I can't. I don't want to take that chance, because if I'm voting for Biden, I'm voting for Biden. I don't want to vote for the vice president. Like, it's just.
And you feel like there's enough precedent that he may be showing signs of cognitive decline, and it's not your beef is not with him. Your beef was with the people around him.
I don't personally have an issue with Biden, the person. It's just some of the stuff I just don't rock with. I don't rock with the fact that he's just not, like you said, not cognitively able to sustain being a president.
Do you think he did okay in the debates? Do you feel like he showed that he's there?
He had that cocktail, like whatever drug cocktail he had. Because I've seen some of his other debates, and they were not that good. They were like, but like for some odd reason, in that first debate with Trump, he was on it. He was on. I'm going to give him credit. He was on it.
Yeah.
But like towards the end, he was going back to old.
Yeah, the scariest thing about that, and I agree with you. The scariest thing about that is if you go back and watch his VP debate with Sarah Palin from 2008, and you watch some of his speeches from the 90s, there's some clear cognitive decline there. He speaks with a different cadence. there's something going on there. You know what I'm saying? And again, if he loses, I think this is the Democrats having to now take another L and say, is this the party that's going to keep putting these establishment candidates up against maverick candidates like Trump? Is this the party they want to be? Because they have better options. They had Tulsi Gabbard. They had Andrew Yang. They had better options. Even Cory Booker. They had better options, and they went with the establishment guy. And if they lose, then I'm cool with it. Y'all deserve that L, because in my opinion, I don't think they should have propped up Biden the way they did. Any thoughts? Somebody asked me to ask you any thoughts, and this, I guess we'll kind of wrap up on this point. So weird point to wrap. I would agree with you there, by the way. Me and you agree there. I don't think his cabinet. I'm not a fan of Kamala at all, by the way. I do not like Kamala at all. And I feel you on am I voting for Biden or am I voting for Kamala? I think that's a very fair assessment.
And one final point I just want to make on my whole thing is just the whole thing where I feel like in Revelation it was talking about, like, you don't want to go the way the world's going. I feel like the world is catering to Biden a little bit. Like, we don't even talk about the laptop. We don't talk about that. That just doesn't come up. But we talk about how when Trump came out there. I
talked about the laptop, by the way. I talked about
yeah. You talked about the laptop, not CNN, not any of these crazy media companies. And like my thing is, it's just like, we'll talk about how Trump coughed a little bit on the thing, but we won't talk about these deals with the Ukraine with Biden's son. And it's just like, when does the media cover that? When does the media cover Biden? Like, and that's just one thing that wasn't viable with me. I just had to get off my chest. Just want to say that one thing.
No, I feel you. I covered the laptop. I think the laptop's fairly problematic.
Right.
But, hey man, I think this is good, bro. We're gonna transition here into our Zoom call here in a second, guys. Hopefully K9 will stick around. I'm sure there's a bunch of people that want to ask you questions in the Zoom call.
All right,
so I think that'll be cool. Give me a sec. Yo, by the way, just so you guys know, today is our last day. As you guys can tell, I do not have a dog in a fight, but I want you guys to know that today is our last day to get your politically agnostic merch. It's on sale, and literally the sale's up at 11:59 Pacific Standard Time. So you can get yourself a t-shirt, a hoodie, a bleached hoodie. These are limited. We have these Yeshua's Dream t-shirts, hoodies, the windbreaker, or you can save a gang of money and just buy the entire collection for $149. If you send me a text on my Superphone, or if you're a Patreon, you get a 30% discount code. So if you guys want to partner with what we're doing here, that is something that goodness gracious, that is something that you guys could do. To cop some merch, man. Be much appreciated. So also, if you guys want to hop into our Zoom call, you can do that. We're going to be live on Zoom. I don't know if we're going to discuss some more of this. I'm going to end this stream and we're going to open up our Zoom stream and chop it up with some of you guys. Thank you guys for hanging with me. I felt like this was reasonable. I think me and K9 agree on a lot of stuff. I think I would be more pressed to make a decision between a Biden and a Trump if I lived in a swing state like he does. He lives in Virginia, which is not may or may not be one of the states that decides the election, but is definitely a pretty important state in this entire thing. And so, shout out to all you guys, man. Pick yourself up some politically agnostic merch. It's pinned up in the chat. You only got a few hours left. And come back for the next, we're going to do a Q&A live stream right after this. So appreciate y'all. Peace.